Maniga yogi mia tijay Lakana Amada Tom you Kyoto. De Savawa Lakana Ne Tingata Lakana ne Tom Samina Lakana Suravali The Bawa Lakana Sura Gurema Mimi a boa Pisima Gozi Boli the Wadiali, you the Wadiali, and the Wadiali Pipin, she in it. Through Changele, Chongjo, send people live. That Gozi the Bawa look over them. Era lady saw a lady so chain by lady body. That Sangatala cannot cover it. Do a pina power. The Burma set on Hobo. Tamila Canasuraga, 2 ye. Yona, the Bawa Diari ha. People be pity at a dini around you. Pipi Pieta Jiva. The Golon Danu Yidu Yimia Divada. And at the road of 2 year canal, so I Eddie Tom Urega, Patama, the Bavala cannot Tivo. The Bavala cannot Tivo Suragaro Pikai Shuma, the Bawa, Muchati 90 Suravali Pikai lady like Shuare. Mingai, Jagai, Nagai, Sagai, Tigai, Sekusa Chansigai, Chuagai, Langai, Chagai, Leche, Jauchi, Kuigai, Sangai, Miton Kata, Melupeta, Puna, Savori, Columa, Nane, you Tiari, ha, a changing body, a carne, a jolo body. Carnage, you 12 to Creed or the Lowody, Penny Jarabe. You got Obama Matibu, Nadia Ratide. You got a carnet, Lugane to them. Nagaro, Luson, Cheromata never going to them. To run the opponent, she Creed or Chitabe. Shirok Matavida Messi Tane Pogo, Shirok Davida Messi Matane Pogo, Makwa Sibiro, a poor Lampia Luxitabe. Did a Tina came at a Yudiane, a Tina dia Ponsale de Cajaro, Lurima Ludi Pinida. Eddie Nane Diari, changing Ponsa Bido, a low lady, the Chatia Olo, Coco Lila Yara, Current 2 days in a lawyer. The Pimayo to the 2 days in a lawyer Kama, Korea the Zavalari Lurele, Timaro Korea Zavala Bomlo. 2 Pidopi Sally that light should never. You know, Kali, Jaron Kali, Nano Saru, Tito, Pono, Pino, Eddie Kaitan Lema, Eddie Popo, Ali, say I say, Chin like a Viroda. Titi Mimi, shoe never wet hours, I did look who. They bouncing. The little cook was such a low mess, a poor lolo share. The Logam Pidaro. A Loma Pidaro, she a Locamia with her. Pivita Luna, Locayama. Nalover. Yogi, a logo Pita Lolo she. Look on it, do that. 6 Jamuga sa. The care she gonna to gonna do that. Yo. To sooner to that, no. တွဲဆက်ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်ပုံလေးတွေကောင်းကောင်းကြီးနားလည်လာပါလေအဲဒါတော့ဖြစ်ခိုက်ရှုမှသဘောဝမြင်သည်ဆိုတာကဖြစ်ခိုက်လိုက်ပြီးတော့ရှုရတယ်လား
Yesterday, Sayadawgyi spoke about 3 characteristics that the yogis should know about. First of all, sabhava lakkhana. Second of all, sankata lakkhana. And third, samanya lakkhana. So, sabhava lakkhana, the first. In one's stream of existence, in one's being, there are mental and physical, individual, true natures are happening. Individual moments of mind and matter are happening. These are related as cause and effect. And these things which are happening are individual sabhava, individual true nature. And each of these has a start, a middle, and an end. This is called sankata lakkhana. This is a concept. This is not true nature, sankata lakkhana. This is concept, how they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a conceptual level of seeing. And the third, samanya lakkhana, the common characteristics that all mental and physical phenomena have. Having arisen, they don't stay that way, they pass away. And all mind and matter are the same in this respect. So among these 3, to know sabhava, to know the individual true nature, to know this, you have to observe at the very moment of arising. Then one will know true nature for sure. So at the very moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, lifting, moving, placing, bending, stretching, blinking the eyes, opening and closing the eyes. At all these moments, there's mind and matter, nama and rupa, occurring together. And what they're like, it's just like a blind man and a crippled man going on a trip together. So, what the body, the physical stuff, doesn't know anything. What is physical does not have any knowing. Nama, or mentality, cannot do anything. It knows, but it can't do. So, together the mind and matter can work together, just the way the blind man and a crippled man can go on a trip together. So, the blind man can't see, but he can walk. And on the other hand, the crippled man, he can't walk, but he can see. So he has to sit on the blind man's back or on his shoulders, and then he can tell the blind man where to go. So the 2 of them, when they get together, they can walk somewhere. Separately, they can't do anything. But the 2 of them together can go on a trip together. And this is the way our mind and body work together. Together they can be effective. So to know how these 2 work together, examine yourselves. Do this self-research. But unlike the research we do in the world, we don't need any instrument. We don't need any external instrument. All we have to do is when seeing arises, we have to make effort, aim the mind, and observe effectively when there's hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, eating, at any moment, all we need to do is to make effort to observe, aim the mind, and observe effectively. So this is our job. We just have this one job. And if instead of doing this one job, yogis do something else, then their work as a yogi will not be effective. So one should do this yogi job, this one yogi job, effectively. And if one does so, then beginning with purity of mind, one will develop knowledge and one will understand quite clearly how this blind man, the body, and the lame man, the mind, work together. So in order to understand this, one has to observe at the very moment of arising and see the true nature that is there.
Buddha Mesra go to the Lubeka. Teacher Nilan Pit over Yoti Naniha. She Bainiga, she Yapain Lava Nipainiga. Keep it up yet or a take it of it. Pianchilo Mamino. Direct Mamino. Agara, she allowed me now, Pina Lopemina. Now, Pima Yona, they will ever choose or ever to Rulamina, but Pima is a theme of the Veda. The letter of Baba Chow. Teacher Nila, yes, or she appeared over it. You could pull a piece of one charge. Titi popular. Nali paid that teacher. Go away and let you be the teen have a teacher have. Teacher a local, yes, or she appeared. Who are wanted to resolution, Kongema. Kongem Pini, Mavoli, Moka, let's say so that she was. Let don't hear. Let be Tanijama Dwaji say, let's say, Dara Matuero. Melekele Chujilumia, Sekune. Let me tear to the Pokoriha. Sekune, a low lower, Bahama Dimaho, Shakona, and at the tower. Sekune Lolo Pita solution level, the Lavo Lemelo, Kuniame, Kuneviro, Sekune, Edava. Go low lemon Javu. Sekune, Mapipa, the Loga. Take a hardy level, longer hardy level, since I do a poor Saint Fiona. Go Pime, and I got Pime hardy level, choosing Zalum. Lolo the Buno Kongema, Liasi Lelucia. Let only cheer. Let only cheer the Liasi Yango, a layout to later. Eddie a layout, Eddie wanting a mongo to a pay shop later, 230 little polar. Lepon lady, let she there, coolly cocoa glaze from you, Lepon lady. The lady let it, Eddie told you there, the new teeth of his solution. I shut you, Tia Yoda, Taluva, Kurema. You know me, say, Charu Jaze, Nanze, Ayada Sadize, Guatize, Joaze, Lanze, Chaze, Ponze, Peze, Quize, Sanze, Medogata, Melubita Bunaza. Kitupi Sally Labito Chia. Shasi let them Chilo Chia, Shasi Yo, a layout weare. A layout among she let it 230 Tiame. People when he let us relate directly Tiama. A let only Chima. Imminent Polier, imminent Chicha, silly Nicalumiabo, Titiaga, a tweed martin in any mamma town. Let me judge at Luna in a Pokurima. You judge at Luna, you judge at Luna in a Pokurima. Korea, the Wadiari City, St. Jela with the Korea, the Wadiari Wadi. Chigan Savio, says Dimi Donne, era the Tajabu, era Pika Shuma, the Baba, the Pika Shua.
The Buddha gave a reliable method for us to use when we study ourselves. So, this study of ourselves, before the present moment, Nama and Rupa was happening, but that is gone. That already arose and passed away. And so we don't see it anymore. What already happened, we don't see. What we can still know is concept or form. But this is not a reliable thing for us to study, concept or form. So with the method that the Buddha gave, we can observe at the very present moment. And this is what gives us definite knowledge. This is what is definite. So what we do is we observe what is happening at the present moment with our mind. And this way we observe what is definite. So what it is similar to when it rains or there's a thunderstorm. At that time, lightning may happen. And one can't see the lightning before it happens. It hasn't happened yet. After the lightning, one also can't see it. It's gone. But if one looks at the sky at the very moment, at the very place where the lightning occurs, one sees exactly what is happening. So, if we look before the lightning strikes, then we can only imagine what it might be like. And imagining in the practice is not an effective way to learn. So if one is going to apply imagination to try to learn about oneself, this is not effective, and there's no need to come here if one is going to imagine. One can imagine very comfortably in one's own home. So there's no need to come here in order to do imagination. Regarding the past, it's gone. It can't be observed. Regarding what hasn't occurred yet, the future, it hasn't happened, so we can only imagine it. But like when we look at the sky, right at the moment the lightning comes, we see the light created by the lightning. And we see that it dispels the darkness. That's its function. And we also see that it has a form. It may be jagged, look like fingers, and so on. So when we know one of these three things, when we look at the sky at the very moment the lightning strikes, we can see one of those three things. We can see the light. We can see how it dispels the darkness. Or we can see its form. When we see any one of these three, we are knowing the lightning. So similarly, when seeing happens, in the moment of seeing, in the moment of hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, in the moment of rising, in the moment of falling, lifting, moving, placing, blinking the eyes, opening and closing the eyes. When something happens, we have to watch it. And if we do, just as when we see the lightning, we'll see the light. We'll see that the darkness is dispelled, and we'll see the form. That happens because we look at the very moment the lightning comes. So we have to be alert and active in doing this. Our minds need to be active. It's not a place for being sluggish about it. We have to, and it's not a place for reflecting. This is a task for practical people, people who do, people who are doers. And based on, one simply looks at oneself. So one has to observe at the very moment of arising, and then one will see true nature.
Buddha shi Daidari ma so lo shi ye Korea ro Tayuk pi ro ma kale kasaa saya tamyo shiပါတယ်ခဝိုင်းဝိုင်း6ปีပတ်လေလို့အဝိုင်းမို့အပေါက်ကလေးတွေဖောက်ထားတယ်အဲ့ဒီမှာအကောင်လေးပုံစံပေါ့လေပွေးခေါ်ပါတယ်ပွေးပြည့်နေတူတယ်အဲ့ဒီတတ္တဝါလေးပုံစံလုပ်ထားတယ်လျှက်စစ်နဲ့တွဲထားတာလျှက်စစ်နဲ့ဆက်တွဲပြီးတော့ဒီကောင်လေးတွေကကျင်းနေတက်လာတဲ့ပုံဟန်မျိုးပေါ့လေတက်လာတယ်အဲ့ဒါကိုဟိုဘက်ဒီဘက်6ကြီးရှိတယ်ဆိုရင်တင်ပုတ်လေးနဲ့ရိုက်ရတယ်ကိုယ့်ဘက်ကပေါ်သမျှကိုရိုက်နိုင်လို့ရှိရင်တစ်ချက်ရိုက်ရင်တစ်ချက်အမှတ်ရတာပဲလွတ်သွားရင်အမှတ်မရတော့ဘူးအမှတ်ဆုံးရှုံးတာပဲဒီတော့ပေါ်ရဲ့လက်ငင်းတစ်ခါလေးရိုက်ရတယ်အဲ့ဒါလေးရအဲ့ဒီကလေးကစားစီရနဲ့လည်းပဲတိတ်တူပါတယ်ဒီတရားထုတ်တာဟာကိုယ်ရဲ့စိုက်ပြီးတော့ပေါ်ရင်လက်ငင်းမှတ်ရတယ်ပူရပေါ်ပူရလက်ငင်းအေးရပေါ်အေးရကွေးရပေါ်ကွေးရဆန့်ရပေါ်ဆန့်ရကြွရပေါ်ကြွရလှမ်းရပေါ်လှမ်းရပေါ်ချရပေါ်ချရရက်ရပေါ်ရက်ရချက်ချက်ပေါ်ရင်ပေါ်ချင်းမှပြီးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဟောကြောသွားပြီခုနလည်းပဲဟိုတွင်းရထွက်လာတဲ့အကောင်လေးတွေပေါ်ချင်းမြက်လို့ရှိရင်သူ့ဟာသူပြောင်းဝင်သွားတာပဲရိုက်သူအမှတ်မရတော့ဘူးပေါ်ချင်းရိုက်နိုင်လို့ရှိရင်အမှတ်ရတာပဲဒီတော့ဘုရားဒီပဲပြန်ကစားတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာဒီအကောင်လေးရှိတဲ့နေရာဌာနအမြဲတမ်းစိတ်ထားရမယ်ဟိုထွက်လာတာကိုအထူးသတိထားရမယ်အလေးကျင့်လုပ်ရမယ်အလေးကျင့်လုပ်ပါများလို့ရှိရင်ထွက်ချင်းရိုက်နိုင်တာပဲအမှတ်တွေအများကြီးရလာတယ်ရိုက်နိုင်လေအမှတ်များများရလေပဲအဲ့ဒီသဘောသွားလေးတွေကိုဘုန်းကြီးတို့အရှိတိုင်းသားကိုရီးယားနဲ့တရုတ်တွေကတော့ကောင်းနားလဲပါတယ်အနောက်တိုင်းသားတွေရောဘယ်လိုဖြစ်မလဲတော့မသိဘူးတွေ့တော့တွေ့ဦးကြမှာပဲဘုန်းကြီးတို့ရဟန်းတော်တွေတော့မတွေ့သေးတာပဲအဲ့ဒါလေးတွေဘုန်းကြီးလည်းဆောင်းထားပါတယ်ဒီမှာသိတဲ့ဘောပေါက်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေကိုအဲ့ဒီကရိယာလေးထုတ်ပြီးတော့ပြလိုက်တာပဲဟိုကြည့်တော့ဒီမှာအကောင်လေးတွင်းလေးရထွက်လာတယ်ထွက်ချင်ရတယ်လို့ဒီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ကထုရတယ်လို့မထုရင်အမှတ်မရဘူးထုနိုင်ရင်အမှတ်ရတယ်ဒါပဲယောဂီရလည်းပဲကိုယ်ရဲ့စိုက်ထားပြီးတော့ကိုယ်ရဲ့ထင်ရှားပေါ်တဲ့ဟောလေးကျင်းနေထွက်လာတဲ့အကောင်လေးလို့ပေါ်ရင်မြုံရရတယ်လို့နေတာကိုယ်ရဲ့ဟောလည်းစိုက်ထားရတယ်လို့စိတ်ကဒါလေးဥပမာလေးတွေနဲ့ပြောပါတယ်တော့မှာအဲ့တော့အခုသတင်းတစ်ပတ်အားထုတ်လို့မှဘာမှမထူသေးဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ပေါ်ချင်းရိုသေသေးစိစိဆက်ဆက်နဲ့မမှတ်သေးလို့ဆိုတာပေါ့လေထိုင်ထအကွေးစလှုပ်ရှားတယ်လေဖြည်းဖြည်းသာလူမာလို့မလုပ်သေးလို့ဆိုတာပြပါတယ်လုပ်ငန်းရဲ့အကျိုးကိုနားလည်ပြီးတော့မြတ်တို့တန်ဖိုးမထားသေးလို့ဆိုတာကပြနေပါပြီအဲ့တော့လုပ်ငန်းရဲ့အကျိုးကိုနားလည်ပြီးတော့မြတ်တို့တန်ဖိုးထားကြပါလုပ်ငန်းရဲ့အကျိုးလည်းဘုန်းကြီးကပြောတော့ပါပြီစိတ်တန်ရှင်းတယ်ဆိုတဲ့လို့ဟာအမှန်ကောင်းတယ်အမှန်အထက်တန်းကြတဲ့လို့ပဲ
in Korea and China, there's a children's game that Sayadawgyi has seen. And it's a plastic circle, like a plate, and it has holes in it. And it runs on electricity. And there's a little plastic animal, like a mole that when you turn the machine on, the toy on, these plastic moles start to come out of the holes in the plate. And they pop up. And the child has to hit the mole directly as soon as it pops up, because that's the way to get points. Otherwise, if you miss the mole, then you lose points. So the mole pops up and then goes back in, and you have to hit it right when it's there, before it goes back into his hole. And so that's how to play the game. And it's similar to how we have to practice, because just like the child has to focus his or her attention on the playing on this circle to get the mole right when it comes up, the yogi has to put their attention on the body. And as soon as the object arises, they have to observe it. So whether it's rising or falling, sitting, standing, lifting, moving, placing, whatever the object is, as soon as it arises, the yogi has to observe it. And in the case of the game, if one is too slow to hit the mole with a little plastic mallet, then the mole goes back into the hole. So for us, for the player of the game, they have to put their attention where the mole is going to come out on the little plate. And to play the game, you also have to practice. And if you practice, then you'll be able to hit the mole as soon as the mole comes out, whatever location it might be coming out. So the yogis from Korea and China understand this because they've seen the game. So Sayadawgyi also, he doesn't know if Westerners have seen a game like this, but when he saw it, he brought one back with him from Korea to demonstrate to the yogis about how one has to practice. And he tells the yogis, as soon as the object arises, as soon as the mole comes out, you have to hit it. And just the same way, the yogis have to put their attention on the body, and as soon as the object arises, they have to observe it. So the yogi's attention always has to be placed on their body. So if in 2 weeks nothing special has happened yet in the practice, it's because one doesn't observe at the very moment of arising. One is not observing the object at the moment it arises. It also means that when one performs activities like bending or stretching, going from standing to sitting down, sitting to standing up, those actions aren't being done slowly. Those should be done slowly, like as though one is an invalid, a sick person. And it also shows that one doesn't value one's time. So understanding the benefits of this work that we're doing, please do it respectfully. And Sayadawgyi has been urging the yogis to do this because the task is very valuable and high level.
Lengi chechin, mianzo atwa so lower the kisa de dema. The Dribda Bavana Diatora ha. Take good lengi java, chechin lower. Nenema silly decanum yavo. Milli minji lengi, in a minimum. Charlie Jaji lengi, Jari Jari. Nako Nayalichi, Nani Nani lengi. Yada Sati de Kamaleve အမူအရာတွေအများကြီးပါပဲထမင်းတစ်လုပ်ပါဇက်ထဲရောက်ဖို့ဝါတာတွေမျိုးစားကျင်တာတွေမျိုးတာတွေပေါ့လေဒီလိုဆိုအနေဥပ္ပကိစ္စတွေကိုယ်ထိတွေ့တဲ့ခါမှာလည်းအနေဥပ္ပပါပဲသူကအကျေပြန်ဆုံးမှာမြေတောင်လေးခတ်တာမျိုးလုံးပိတ်တာဖွင့်တာစအထိတွေ့တယ်စိတ်ကူးတယ်လည်းအများကြီးပါပဲစဉ်းစားတယ်လည်းအများကြီးပါပဲစိတ်ကလေးမှနားတယ်မရှိဘူးဒါဖြစ်နေတာပဲဒါတွေကမြင်လေမြင်ချင်းကြားလေကြားရင်စသည်ပေါ့လေလက်ငင်းချက်ချင်းအားရတာကျေလို့ရတာခုနဒူတော်ကြီးဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုချက်ချင်းပေါ်ရင်ပြရရတယ်ရုပ်ရလည်းပဲကိုယ်ရဲ့စိုက်ထားပြီးတော့လက်ငင်းထိရှားတာပေါ်ချင်းအဲ့ဒီစီစိတ်ရောက်သွားအောင်ဘုရားပြအားဆိုင်မှုကိုကြတဲ့အောင်ရွယ်စုမှုနေရတာတွေရှိနေရမယ်စစ်ကနိုင်လို့ရှိနေရမယ်အိပ်ပြောတဲ့အချိန်ကလွယ်လို့ရှိကျန်တဲ့အချိန်တွေမှာအမြဲတမ်းအစင်းသင့်ဖြစ်နေရမယ်နားချိန်မရှိဘူးဟုတ်ပဲကိုကအလုတ်ကိုတန်ဖိုးမထားလို့ကိုယ့်ကိုနားချိန်နားပေါ်လေဒါတော့ကိုယ့်ကိုနားလို့ရှိရင်တော့ဒါအလုတ်ပေါ်မှာတန်ဖိုးမထားဘူးဆိုတဲ့သဘောတော့သိရောက်ပါတော့တန်ဖိုးသိမှတန်ဖိုးထားတတ်ပါတယ်တန်ဖိုးမသိလို့ရှိရင်တန်ဖိုးမထားတတ်ဘူးခပ်ဖို့ပါပဲဒီလိုပဲဒီအလုပ်ကအမှန်တန်ဖိုးရှိပါတယ်ဆိုတော့လူနဲ့တူအောင်နေတတ်တဲ့နည်းတွေလူလို့စိတ်ထားတတ်တဲ့နည်းတွေလူသိညာရှိပြီးတော့လူထက်လူဖို့တွေလူအစဉ်တမ်းမြောက်နေတတ်တဲ့နည်းလေးတွေလောကီတွေမှာမရှိပါဘူးလောကီပညာလည်းမပေးနိုင်ပါဘူးအလုံးလုံးပတ်ဆံကလည်းမပေးနိုင်ပါဘူးငွေကြေးလည်းမပေးနိုင်ပါဘူးကျမ်းမာရေးတက်ကလည်းမပေးနိုင်ပါဘူးလူဆက်ဆံရေးကောင်းတာလည်းဒါလည်းမပေးနိုင်ပါဘူးလောကီကိစ္စတွေမှာဘယ်တော့ပဲထူးချွန်ဒီလိုအနေအထားမျိုးနည်းနည်းမှမပေးနိုင်ပါဘူးဒါလူရည်လို့ဖြစ်လာပြီဆိုရင်လူလောကမှာလူပိသားကိုသိအရေးကြီးတယ်ဆိုတော့ဗောလေလူလိုစိတ်ထားတတ်ဖို့လည်းသိအရေးကြီးတယ်တကယ်အရှိတရားတွေကိုအခြေခံစားပြီးတော့အစစ်စစ်သိမြင်ပြီးတော့လူသိညာရှိပြီးတော့လူထက်လူဖြစ်ဖို့အရေးကြီးတယ်ဆိုတာကိုယ့်ဘောကိုတွတ်တတ်ဖို့ဒါအရေးကြီးပါတယ်
This task is a task that needs to be done with immediacy. It's the practice of satipatthana is not something that we can be slow about doing at all. As soon as seeing happens, while this seeing is fresh, one has to observe it. As soon as hearing happens, one has to observe it right when it's fresh. As soon as smelling, tasting, touching, as soon as these happen, one has to observe them right at that very moment. In eating, there's many types of activities involved in eating. Taking the food, chewing it, swallowing it. In touch, in terms of things that involve touching, this is the broadest category of all and includes all small actions such as blinking, opening and closing the eyes. And with regard to thinking, there's many forms of thinking that can happen. Thinking or mental objects, imagining, planning, and so on. So every second there is something happening. And as soon as these things happen, one has to observe them. As soon as there is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, when that object is fresh, one has to observe it. So it's similar to how one has to hit the mole that comes out. As soon as it comes out, one has to hit it directly with the plastic mallet. So too, when the object arises, one has to apply effort immediately and aiming. One has to apply effort and accurate aim every waking moment. And one has to be ready to observe. So if one doesn't value the task and wants to take a break from noting, then that shows one doesn't value the work. If one knows the value of what we are doing, then one will cherish the practice. So this practice is a method for becoming truly human, to be able to keep one's mind humane, and to be able to develop special human knowledge. This is something one can't get through any worldly means. One can't pay money and get these results. One can't get them through talking sweetly to someone. One can't get them because of being healthy. One can get these through the practice. So if one is a human being, then it's very important to be a true human being and to be able to keep one's mind humane and to know what is really there as it is and develop special human knowledge. So one should calculate for oneself how important this is in one's life.
အခုခေတ်ကဘာအရာရာမှာအကျင့်စာရိတ္တတွေပြတ်နေတာသူသဖြင့်စေဘုသိပ္ပံထုံးကားတဲ့တိုက်ပြည်တွေမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သိပ္ပံနောက်ကိုတကောက်ကောက်လိုက်ပြီးတော့ကိုချင်းတရားကိုအလေးမထားတဲ့တိုက်ပြည်တွေမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အကျင့်စာရိတ္တတွေသိပြည့်စည်တာပဲဘုရားတို့တိုက်ပြည်လည်းပဲဘုရားသနာထုံးကားတယ်လို့ဆိုမှလို့ဘုရားတို့တိုက်ပြည်လည်းပဲတော်တော်ရပ်စားပြီသိပ္ပံပညာတွေထုံးကားလာတာနဲ့မဟုတ်လို့ရစရာမရှိအောင်တော့ပြည့်စည်သွားပြီအခုလိုခေတ်ကြီးထဲမှာအမေရိကကဒိုင်နီယာကိုလမိတ်လို့ပေါ့လေသူကစိတ်ပိုင်းဆိုင်ရာစဉ်းစားတတ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဆိုတော့ဘာကြောင့်လူတွေအကျင့်စာရိတ္တပြည့်စည်ရတယ်လဲသိပ္ပံပညာတွေလည်းတတ်တယ်ជីវရေးလည်းအဆင်ပြေတယ်ဒီဝိဆက်ဆံရေးလည်းကောင်းတယ်အစစရကျမ်းမာရေးတို့ဘာလို့လဲအဆင်ပြေတယ်ဘာဖြစ်လို့ဒီလိုဖြစ်ရတယ်လဲဆိုတော့ပေါ့အိကျူကိုတိတ်ဥစားပေးလို့အားကြည့်ပြီးတော့ကိုကျင်တရားဟောတဲ့အိကျူကိုမပါလို့ဆိုတာသွားပြီးတော့ကြရိမြင်ပါလေသူကလည်းတရားတော်လေးအထုတ်ထားတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဆိုတော့အိကျူပါမှလူပြီးသားမယ်ဆိုတာနားလေတော့အိကျူထည့်ပေးတယ်သူနိုင်သမျှတရားတွေဟောတယ်အဲ့ဒီခါမျိုးမှာအိမ်ကျူရောက်လူတူတော်ရဲ့ဘဝအစဉ်တမ်းမြင့်မှုက25ရာခိုင်နှုန်းတွေ့ရပြီးတော့ဤကျူရောက်လူတူတော်ရဲ့ဘဝအစဉ်တမ်းမြင့်မှုက95ရာခိုင်နှုန်းတွေ့ရတယ်သူတည်နေလို့တယ်သူ့လိုတွေ့တတ်တဲ့ပုံကိုယ်တွေကဘာရရမှာရှိမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ကဘာကြီးဟာအမှန်တရားအေးချမ်းမှာပါပဲအခုဒီတရားဟာတကူရေးပထမဆုံးငြိမ်းချအောင်ပြုလုပ်ပြီးတော့အဲ့ဒီငြိမ်းချမ်းတဲ့နည်းတွေတယောက်ကစအများကြီးပေါ့လေကိုယ်ဆွေမျိုးတဲ့မိတ်ဆွေတွေအစမှာပဲတဖြည်းဖြည်းပြန်ပွားအောင်လုပ်လို့ရှိရင်အခုကလာလည်းနဲ့ဆန်ရဆိုတော့ရှိမှတော့မဟုတ်တော့ဘူးတိတ်အရေးပါတဲ့ဓမ္မအဲ့တော့ကဘာကြီးကဣကျူတော့တော်တော်လေးကြာဆင်းသွားပါပြီဘုန်းကြီးဆိုချင်တာကတော့ SU တော့တော်ကြာဆင်းသွားပါပြီ SU ဆိုတာစိတ်ခါ3ပါးပေါ့သီလသမာဓိပညာသိက္ခာ3အဲ့ဒါတွေကြာဆင်းသွားပြီအဲ့ဒါတွေပြန်ပြီးတော့ပွင့်လင်းတိုးတက်လာမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ကဘာကြီးကတော့အမှန်ကောင်းလာမှာပါပဲ
At the present day, all over the world, moral behavior is in ruins. And especially this is true in technically advanced countries. So in technically advanced countries, Sayadawgyi has observed that personal morality has become very low. And it's even true in a country like Myanmar, this country. even in a country like this, which is not technically advanced and which has Buddhism as a base, the morality is very, very low. So in America, there's an American psychologist, Dan Goleman, who has practiced meditation. And he wondered, well, why is it that the moral condition is so bad among people in his country? So, he looked, well, there's scientific knowledge, economically people generally well off, health is good. So in all respects, all outward aspects, people's situation on the whole is quite good. But in examining, he found that because there's an emphasis on IQ, intelligence quotient, and a negligence of good personal behavior, because of that, which you could call EQ, or emotional intelligence quotient. Because of this, people's morality has declined a lot. So as a person who had practiced the Dhamma, he understood the importance of good moral behavior and good personal qualities, such as knowing oneself. So he did a study, he examined successful people, and he found that when people are successful, in only 25% of the cases that he studied is this success due to high intelligence. In most cases, it's due to good personal qualities that he groups under the label of EQ. 75% of successful people are successful because they have good personal qualities. And so if more people would approach, if more people had the outlook that Dan Goleman does in the world, then there would be peace, there would be more peace in the world. Because this Dhamma is for making our own individual world peaceful. And when we've made our own individual world peaceful, from there we are able to spread that to our immediate environment, to our family, to our friends, to our workplace. And if people in the world would do this, we wouldn't be turning to developing more and more new types of weapons. So Sayadawgyi prefers the term SQ to EQ. And to Sayadawgyi, SQ stands for the trainings, Sekha, the 3 trainings. So if more people in the world would work on developing their SQ, then the world would be very good.
လူတွေမှာဟိုဘက်ဒီဘက်ပဲမလိုက်ဖ ೇನೆ ကြားချပြီးတော့ပေါ့လေအိန္ဒိယရဲ့နေတတ်တဲ့နီးလောကထဲမှာမရှိပါဘူးတရားနေတဲ့မှာပဲရှိပါတယ်ပေါ်ရိပ်အာယုံမှာပဲနဲ့တိုင်းလှုပ်ထားကြည့်စမ်းပါလားဘယ်လိုဖြစ်မလဲစိတ်จิตအာယုံလေးတွေတွေ့လို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီပဲပါသွားတာပဲအဲ့ဒီပဲလိုက်လျောတဲ့သဘောဖြစ်သွားတာပဲဒါအနုရောဓခေါ်ပါတယ်မြတ်စွာဘုရားသုံးတတ်တာကိုမကြိုက်တဲ့အာယုံနဲ့တွေ့ပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဟင်းဆိုတာပေါ့လေစัญญတာပဲဒါဝိရောဓခေါ်ပါတယ်အနုရောဓနဲ့ဝိရောဓဟာတော့လူတွေမှာဖြစ်နေတာပဲကိုယ်မထိန်နိုင်လေဝိရောဓအနုရောဓကတခုဖြစ်နေတာပဲကြားချပြီးတော့မနေတတ်တော့အလေကောင်းကမနေတတ်တော့နေတတ်တဲ့နီးလည်းမရှိတော့နီးတိပြီနဲ့အဲ့ဒီနီးတိုင်းမလုပ်တော့ဒါလူတွေမှာအဲ့ဒါအာနေချက်ဖြစ်နေပါတယ် Ago Mili Mini Langima Jali Jaya Langima Lucia Miu Miali Jayo Miali Sadi or Sikli or Yatwara. She was set over. Short law later level since I'm Shivu. You so Gita Nazara at you level Madrido. Short law later Teluchi and Nurora Dragona Novaya. Tayamut and Halame. Kumjeta Teluchi, Sajin Luchi, level Doza Lame. Majeta, Majaluchi, or Matana Luchi, Doza Pitava. The Ludimite time sent it over. At the low, who be Lightning solution, a go walk, Matana no. The Changaluchi, no Pietana Pietara. Chacha Vido needed a needy, armored and needy Mesovia. To my Peter. Milling Minion Langima Pad. Miu Miama, better sickly Yatoma. Jalin Giant Langima Pad, Jao Malima Yatoma. Jao Malima Yatware Zuraga. Jaya Atan, Sayadawgyi Atan, Jaleve, Kuna Nurora, Lelio Mutanamavu. Kumjete Dan Jalocina, we wrote a Sanjin and Dodam view. Chavoli. Every cha needed Mesovia Peter. Other Nita Lila look, who did like fools of the share. Era Missima Pribra Cora, Metro Ways that are Jora. I go Korean Koja, Metro Way, Paunijarava. Yes, of ya Nipeo me Lamankama Shauchi, Eddie Hobatibe, soon only. Soon only Lucia gonna Metro Way, Tayade Langi Pilama. Eddie Tayade Langi Pyongyang Show Lucia.
Among humans, there's no way in the world which shows us how to stay, to keep from, to stay kind of neutral, to stay without following, without going to from one extreme to another. In the Dhamma, there is this way to keep oneself from going to one side or the other with whatever we encounter. So to show you what Sayadawgyi means by this, just try to see what happens when you aren't aware of the object. Just try not observing the object. So what will happen is that when the object is pleasant, then one goes along with it. One gives into it, one follows it. And that's called anurodha, going along with it. And if it's something one doesn't like, one will oppose it. One will feel opposition. This is virodha. And this, mostly people in the world are like this. When they encounter something they like, they go with it. When they encounter something they don't like it, they oppose it. And people aren't able to keep from going in either of those directions. People aren't able to stay in the middle. So that's how most people behave. But if when seeing happens, if one notes it right on the spot, when hearing happens, one notes it right on the spot, smelling, tasting, and so on, then the mind will stop with mere seeing. The mind will stop with the stream of mind. So if we see something that we like, and we go with it, we follow it, we don't use awareness, then what arises is greed. If we see something that we don't like, then without awareness, what happens is we oppose it. we react to it, and anger occurs. So this happens in everyone. Right? And if we give in to the things that we like and oppose the things that we don't like, we will not be able to control ourselves, and we will get into trouble. So what we have to do is, when seeing happens, we have to note it on the spot. With mere seeing, the stream of mind will stop. If we do this in the moment of hearing, when there's a sweet sound, a pleasant sound, if we note it right when the hearing happens, there won't be any giving in to it. There won't be any following it. No greed will arise. At the moment of hearing, when we observe it right when it happens, even if it's a disagreeable sound, the mind won't oppose it. There won't be any anger following on that sound. So this is how the practice keeps us walking the middle way, in between the extremes of liking and disliking, in between the extremes of greed and anger. So to develop our own middle way, the Buddha showed the method, and this is what we need to do in the practice. We need to learn to follow the middle path so that we don't either give in to what we like or oppose what we don't like. And if one follows this middle path of the practice, then one's behavior will be free of fault.
Pongai Pinga Krema. The Guru Tribran in a Shulu Pika Shuma, the Wawa, Mianani Sura Timeboli, Pongai Shulu, down at the olive or Yagua, down at the dinner, the wall Yagology, dinner, the looked at the wall Yagua, looked at the at the Lipulavi Suluchi, do not perfect pit in a sick penny level, piece of Norave. I will never see it. Quinja dead or don't ever much agree, Quinja dead or Italy tea. That's something about making it. Somebody making it. Teach mana among me and somebody. That being a making people. Pony Pinay Pinay Manaboya, I said. Put me outside. Outside the road, you go materially cut or the tea made a copy of everyone was exactly such as what the Marilla Pietro. Would you at the tea to marry? The tea to marry making Tomba level, the sheet for a Eddie Kaitama. Kona Anudora Kore Lovale Bo. We Dora Kore Sanjebe, Dota Lempo. We Dora Anudora Rican Pirati Kaitama level. Dilla take Harry or the piece on it. Dilla take Harry piece on it. The better Julon so Gare, Tamu Komu Kamatonjamu Sati, Darimshiu, Lehum Shiu. Dilla take Harry piece on it, or Komuno who never see Jenny Rave. Julon Namashi. Would you at the Maridi Pani of Setema? Kona don't join the city or the touching flash in the city, do not be seen by sitting in the city. It is Piquamia. The Dinian Pietwa Visolochi Kilita Muba Pietware, a Jan Allah Anu Sanjima Kilitare, Dilatica, Tomateca, Pinateca, Teca, Toya, nobody no Piachaleta. The second, the changes were. The Maneso, Jimo Chelsea, what Iraha Lamani Vedama Pika Shuma Shuma Suledema Takwaji Dari Pola Tila making Padore, the Mari making Padore, Pina making Padore, making Shipa Padore. Nibago Miene Aria making a shape you making the body, Era Padore. The second social knowledge era to Pomala. The second meal manalogy era Pola. And Nezo Tila making it, the Mari making a Pivita shoot at Lucy, Pani Rava. Pina making a centine Kachama, Pipitora. Era Kubuaku, 20 resolution. A Maglady, Pita, Pivita, Pita. Good Leliore, good Jade, how you put Male Leliore, Lova Lemapia. Good Majade, Yadimone, Sun in it, Doda Lemapia. Chaboli, Lanyang shouted. Yene Kidore Kamatu, Yinjota, Yisigana like Bido body. Mamma Mauni the waterman. Era ne take to the Vedama. The 20 Mesology, Kubua. I'm not Tambushi. The other does a Kubua, Tambushi of meeting Peter look at our. The Kuwaku meeting a logo, Koga, Lihini Luciano, Kuwaku, Nichaya Yobada. Pose as a lawyer, Nichaya Yoda, now. Had a pose as a mopenebody. The kid leading in it, the second so the law. A good to be at a time of Dylan, take a tomato, take a pina, take a pani, the or a body. Tanale. Kavajima, Eddie, could you take a day, Yichi? Could you take a chega mapare at work, Kavaji Supanira? A change, Lumutea, Machire at work, Kavaji Mapizo, Mapina, Chautanida. And a Luyelu Pilla is a Lucian. Lucian take her, Lu Tiazora, that she will take Yichi. Titiaga, Lucian take her, Lumutiago. Pivita Luta Lamsham Boa, Lamsham Tua, Peter over.
At the moment of rising, at the moment of falling, when we observe at the moment they arise, if our mind falls on stiffness, then one knows stiffness. When the mind falls on tension, one knows tension. If the mind falls on movement, one knows movement. So when knowledge arises, when knowledge arises, then one is, I can't read what I wrote. One should understand what is involved at that moment, that one is able to observe like that. At that moment, the mind is focused accurately on the object. When knowledge arises, I understand what I wrote now. When knowledge arises, there are other factors that are present, that have come to completion at that time. And one of these is accurate aim. The knowledge arises because the mind is focused accurately on the object. And this is called sama sankappa, or right attention of the mind. And knowledge is seeing correctly, samadhi. These two factors make up the wisdom portion of the path. And when every rising, every falling, one is applying effort to observe the object. Because of effort, sati sticks to the object, and because sati sticks to the object, the mind is collected, which is samadhi. So the three factors of the samadhi group of the path are also present. Right effort, right awareness, right concentration. So at that time, there won't be any of this going along with the object, which is greed. There won't be any opposing the object, which is anger. At that moment, too, the path portion of sila will also be complete. One won't be engaged in killing, in stealing, adultery, or lying. So at this time in the practice, our physical and verbal behavior is clean. There's no transgression happening. With effort, sati, and samadhi, there's no even desire to transgress happening in the mind. There's no thought about killing, stealing, adultery, and so on. So this clears the obsessive level of kilesas. And with the wisdom portion of the path, the latent kilesas, the dormant defilements, are being uprooted in the moment. So on 3 levels we are eliminating kilesas. And at the rate of 1 observation per second, then in 1 minute there will be 60 times that this correct path, this Eightfold path, is occurring. So at the moment the object arises, one observes, and in that moment of observation, the Eightfold path is complete, because the sila, the portion of the path relating to sila, is present. The portion of the path relating to concentration or samadhi is also present. And the portion of the path relating to wisdom is also present. This is the forerunner path, the path that precedes seeing Nibbana. And in every second, this path, every second of observation, this path is occurring 1 time. Even if knowledge is not arising, the sila portion and the samadhi portion of the path are being completed. And when knowledge arises, the wisdom portion of the path is also complete. So look at your life when this is happening. This giving in to objects we like, the greed, is not arising. The opposition to things that we don't like, dosa or anger, this is also not happening. So at that moment, one is walking the path in between these 2 tendencies. One is walking the middle path. And if one calculates, one can see that one's life is very valuable. Doing this practice elevates one's life. So when one works like this carefully, then in every second there's sila, samadhi, and panya, these factors of the path. So each time, the trainings of sila, samadhi, and panya are all present. And at this time, this basic human practice is being completed. So because people don't complete these 3 trainings, because people don't practice what humans basically should practice, the world is as if it's boiling over. So these practices of the trainings of sila, samadhi, and panya, morality, concentration, and wisdom, are very important for humans to be able to do. So they make our lives straight.
Today, I took the nearly tapido pioneer. အခုဒီရ60စခန်းမှာလေးပုံပေါ်လာလို့ရှိရင်တပုံပြီးသွားပြီ15ရက်ဒီနေ့19ရက်ရှိသွားပြီနှစ်ပတ်အားထုတ်လို့မှဘာမှထူးခြားခြားမဖြစ်သေးတဲ့ယောဂီတွေလည်းရှိပါတယ်ဘာမှပြီးမရှိသေးတာပေါ့လေယောဂီမပြီးသားတဲ့ယောဂီတွေလည်းတွေ့နေပါတယ်ဒီလာရကျုံနတ်အောင်လို့ယောဂီပြီးသားအောင်တကယ်အလုံးလုံးတဲ့နေရာမှာလဲစက္ကန့်နိုင်မလားပေါ့လေဒီမှာလက်ကြီးရှိပါသွားပုံလေးတဘိုးတွေတက်လာတာလေဘဝဆက်ဆက်လုံးလို့ချီအဲ့ဒါဆုံးရှုံးသွားပုံလေးဒါဒီပြောပါတယ်ဒါဘုန်းကြီးပြောထားတာမဟုတ်ပါဘူးဘုရားပြောထားတာပါရှေ့သူတော်ကောင်းတွေလည်းဒီတိုင်းအထုတ်သွားတာပါပဲကိုမြတ်နိုးလို့ရှိရင်ကိုဘဝစိတ်ဓာတ်မြင့်လို့ရှိရင်အခုပြောတဲ့အတိုင်းပေါ့လေကျန်တဲ့ရဲ့ပိုင်းတွေမှာယူသေးသေးလေးလေးစားစားနဲ့မျက်နှာတံပိုးထားပြီးလှုပ်စစ်ခြင်းနဲ့လုံးလို့ရှိရင်ကိုယ့်အကိုကျိုးရှိသွားမှာပဲဘုန်းကြီးတို့မှာဘာမှအကျိုးမရှိပါဘူးဘုန်းကြီးတို့တော့ဝန်တာဖို့ပဲဒါပဲယူသေးသေးလုံးရင်တရားတော်တွေတည်တော်လို့ရှိရင်ဘုန်းကြီးတို့ဝန်တာတော့ပဲရပုံမြတ်စွာလုံးရတဲ့နဲ့ဘာမှမထူဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့အဲ့ဒီယောဂီအတွက်တော့ဘုန်းကြီးတို့ဝန်တာစရာမရှိတော့နောက်လည်းပဲဆက်အားပေးဖို့ရတော့စိတ်မထက်တန်တော့ဘူးဒါတော့ဓမ္မယူသေးလို့ရတဲ့ခိုက်တန်လေးမှာစိတ်ပါလက်ပါနဲ့ယူသေးစိတ်ဆက်ဆက်အထုနိုင်ကြပါစေလို့မျှော်လင့်ပါတယ်ဒီနေ့ကတော့ဒါပဲ
Today, Sayadawgyi has spoken again about the method of practice. And this is because in this 60-day retreat, 1/4 of the retreat is over now. It's actually been 17 days. And there are some yogis who have practiced for 2 weeks now, but they haven't experienced anything special yet. There are some yogis who aren't behaving like true yogis still at this point. So in a place where one has to apply the practice, he wanted to mention again how to do the practice. And he spoke today about how the Eightfold Path arises in the moment of practice. When the Eightfold Path arises, this increases the value of what we are doing. This is an increase in value when this starts to occur. So if one works carelessly, then one loses this Eightfold Path. When one works carefully, then this Eightfold Path comes into being. And this isn't something that he made up. The Buddha spoke like this. So Sayadawgyi wants to say that if you value yourself, if you want something good for yourself, then please apply yourself to do this practice and work for what is really beneficial for you. It's not for him. The benefit that he gets from it is not what he will get from it if you work hard is that he will be happy. But the benefit is what you will experience yourself. So he wants to urge you to work to get this benefit for yourself. And if at the end of the second 2 weeks, if you still haven't been able to develop the practice by that time, then it's better not to continue for the second month. So Sayadawgyi hopes, and he hopes that you all will be able to apply the instructions for the practice with respect and care, working meticulously. So that's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu.